Right. Let's um, let's get started. So first of all, thanks everybody for joining this session. It's a great honor to be invited to present here at Upstart. I'm going to be talking about my journey and moreover the company that we're currently creating and that I'm the CEO and co-founder of, which is War on Cancer. So starting with from a top level point of view, what's War on Cancer? War on Cancer is a health tech company aiming to radically improve the lives of those impacted by cancer. And we're doing so through the War on Cancer app, a social app for people in and after treatment, as well as their loved ones. Today, War on Cancer is becoming one of the world's largest social apps. We have members from more than 20 countries. And I'll be telling you more about the details of the app, how we're thinking, and how we're trying to improve the lives of people impacted by cancer. But let's just start. Let's just wind the clock back, and I'll talk a bit about how the journey started and why we ended up where we are. So we'll have to wind the clock back almost 7 years now to 2015, to a time when I was living in London. It was my 5th year in that city. I first came to London after a couple of years in business school here in Stockholm, and I flew over to take up work within investment banking. At the time, I thought it was a dream job or my passion. I know now, kind of in hindsight, that in reality, that what I was looking for was external validation for my own happiness. So I worked for a few years down there in London, and after I think it was 2 years in, I started feeling slightly empty with myself. Didn't feel that I was as purposeful as I was when I first came there. So I decided to make a pretty big career change. And I made a huge one, actually, to work in film and in acting instead. Both my parents are used to work in the creative arts. So my dad was an opera singer, and my mother used to work at the theater in Stockholm. So I think the whole creative thing ran in the family a bit. So I decided to go for that as well, and really launched myself into this new career with castings, running around, really hustling and struggling to make amends and create a name for myself in that new film industry. And it was going well. I was really, I was able to utilize and really use a lot of my skills that I learned from my business days and studying business, and I was focusing a lot on networking. So after a few years, I'd started building a bit of a resume, and I landed a role in the States to continue my career there. So in that moment, I was really feeling that, wow, I've really managed to make this dream a reality. Now I'm going to start living my life fully. That's what I felt. But around this time, I started feeling tired, and this was in May 2015. And initially, I thought it was related to stress and a lot of hard work, and I didn't really do anything about that tiredness, except that I felt this intuitively that I need to go back to Stockholm a bit and rest. So I booked a flight for Stockholm about a month later, and during this month, this tiredness just kept growing into an exhaustion. I started sweating all over my body and aching. And on the day that I was going to fly to Stockholm to fly back, I woke up with this immense pain in my chest area, which made it hard for me to breathe. So now I get really scared, and I make it back to Stockholm. And when I met my parents, I tell them right away, like, look, I'm struggling to breathe. I think we need to go to the hospital, to A&E. So we rush to the hospital, and I get a taxi, or we take a taxi to the hospital, and I get a scan. And about 2 days later, I'm diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia, which is an aggressive form of blood cancer. So during a couple of moments, I am 100% certain that I'm not going to survive. And for me, I don't think anyone can prepare oneself for being told or handed that type of news. In my case, what happened was a lot of peacefulness just came to me, and it was almost like an harmonious feeling where there's a voice to me that said, Fabian, you don't have to run anymore. You don't have to chase things anymore. You can just sit back and sort of let whatever happens. And I think that was one of the first times in a long time where I was really my authentic, true self. And I realized that I wasn't a happy individual. I wasn't a happy being. I thought I was chasing this passion, which was working in film and acting. But in reality, I was just chasing an even bigger need for attention. So I think deep down, we can all understand that maybe that voice was me signaling that I had lost my will to live. Moments later, I am rocked out of that moment and back into reality when the doctors tell me that I'm looking at a 60% chance of surviving that, but that I have to go through 900 days of chemotherapy in order to really survive this cancer. And hearing about those 900 days was more traumatizing than hearing about the cancer in the first place, because for me, that felt like psychologically dying. It felt like, everything that I'd worked for was gone. My career was ruined, and I could no longer see a clear path for myself. And I became powerless. And in that moment, I started panicking. And I had so many questions that I needed answers to. And I started asking them to healthcare professionals around me. But they were not so much surrounding the specifics of the cancer treatment, but rather they were about life with cancer. What happens when you have cancer? What happens on a regular Tuesday, when everybody else goes to work and you're not working? And I asked them, are there ways that I can exercise and eat in order to increase my chance of surviving? And when asking these questions, I first got in touch with the inability for the healthcare to see the human behind the patient. So I was met with an unwillingness to really talk to me about any of these questions. And sometimes I was given like weird answers, such as, well, Fabian, eat whatever makes you happy. And frankly, you don't say that to a healthy person. So why do you say that to someone who's been diagnosed with a deadly disease? But I realized that I'm not going to be able to get my answers from him, and I needed a different strategy. And my strategy became social media. I wrote a blog, or I wrote a first post really on one of the social platforms. It was a cry for help, and I asked whether people could help me find someone in a similar situation. Now, this blog or this post was shared 13,000 times over the next 24 hours. And I can genuinely say that was a life-changing experience for me, because literally thousands and thousands of people from all over the world sent their love and support back to me. Personal stories started pouring in, and not just from strangers, but also from close friends who opened up to me about their experiences with cancer for the first time, even though I'd known them for many years. But if there's one thing I noticed above all, it was gratefulness from people. Basically, all the messages started with saying, thank you for sharing. This is really helping me in my journey. And when reading all of those messages, something broke open inside of me, and it felt like my heart really opened up, and I could receive all of that love from so many people. And I remember that I started crying out of joy. And in that moment, I also felt that I believe that I received one of my life's missions, which was I'm going to share my journey through cancer in a blog. And I named that blog Fabian Bolin's War on Cancer. This blog really became a savior from a mental health point of view, and it made me understand the power and potential of human connection and sharing. Now, why was it so good? Well, firstly, sharing was a huge relief for me and a way for me to process in real time the traumatic experience of going through cancer. So sharing is a coping mechanism, and I was sharing on a daily basis. I was writing about my experiences truthfully and openly, and by doing so, I was processing in real time. The second reason why it was so good was because sharing my journey helped me to create a strong support network around me of people that understood how they could behave in order to be a support to me. Most of my friends realized pretty quickly that we can't treat Fabian like a victim, because that will only demotivate him. Rather, we treat Fabian like a person who's going through cancer. The problem today is a lot of patients get victimized because most people have seen a lot of commercials about cancer, about reasons for donating for people going through cancer. Those commercials tend to be more negative and focusing more about the fact that people do die going through cancer, but in reality, 2 out of 3 survive cancer today. However, that's not the marketing that is being communicated. So sadly, a lot of people still believe that cancer equals death, and that creates this huge victimization of people going through cancer. But because I was sharing and talking about this, a lot of my friends learned to respond and treat me just like the person I was and not a victim. But lastly, the third reason why this blog was so good was because of the notion that my sharing was helping others. This blog peaked at around 200,000 monthly readers. For every post that I made, I received hundreds of messages back. And I can honestly say that I've never in my life experienced a bigger sense of purpose nor meaning, and I've never felt happier. So it led to the point where I started to feel grateful towards being diagnosed. And there's a term for this called post-traumatic growth, really growing from a traumatic experience. And that is what I was experiencing. And around this time, when I was feeling this euphoric, all these euphoric feelings, this is when this vision formed that what if we can make other people feel the same way that I'm feeling? What if we can replicate my experiences? What if we can productize an experience that lets other people experience and reach post-traumatic growth as a way to cope with their mental health undergoing cancer? And I knew I needed help because I was in such a bad shape, and I had lost about 20 kilos of weight and all my hair, and I was still not certain I was going to survive. And I had a lot of friends who reached out, who was there with me, but there's always this one friend who sort of steps up more in times like this. And in that case, it was my co-founder and best friend, Sebastian, who's always there for me. We actually shared a flat together in London before we moved over, before I flew home to be diagnosed with cancer. And he quickly understood that, he was one of those that quickly understood that he had to treat me like a person and not a victim. So we spoke on the phone on a daily basis, and he was there with me throughout this. And I told him about this vision, and together we conceptualized what War on Cancer were to become. Now, before we go into the actual product, I want to walk you through sort of what in reality was happening with regards to my mental health. So let's hope you can see this. Yeah, good. So a lot of people talk about mental health. It's a very trendy word to be using in the media, yet not that many people actually understand sort of the full definition of it. Mental health is broken down into 3 different pillars. It's emotional well-being, psychological well-being, and social well-being. Now, social well-being is interconnectedness with others and understanding how one's actions affect other people in one's communities. For a cancer patient, it's not difficult to see that this is taking a huge hit the social well-being. A lot of people get isolated because you can't go to work. You sit at home a lot, and also a lot of your friends just disappear because they don't know how to behave around a person who's going through cancer. A phenomena which is called cancer ghosting. Psychological well-being is the feeling of having purpose and meaning in our lives, and the extent that one experience positive emotions and feelings of happiness. Now, this is where the term identity usually falls under, and losing one's identity is something that is very common as a described problem for people going through cancer. One's identity, of course, differs from person to person. A lot of people identify with career, while some might identify with being as a role of a parent, for instance. Needless, or no matter what your identity is, for many it feels like your identity is being taken away from you for a long time, which is why your psychological well-being goes down. And then lastly, emotional well-being, which is connected to understanding the value of one's emotions by accepting how one is feeling, why one is feeling this way, and responding in a healthy way. Now, this is where, going through cancer is a trauma, right? A trauma really means that something is going on, an emotional response which is too intense for you to deal with. So the body encapsulates the experience and it becomes then a trauma in your body. If a trauma is not dealt with, what normally happens is that it can lead to either PTSD, depression, and anxiety. In the case of cancer, we know from research that 21% of cancer patients get diagnosed with PTSD within 6 months of being diagnosed with cancer. Also, another 25% get diagnosed with clinical depression. So depending on the overlap, we're looking at up towards 50% of patients that are either experiencing PTSD or clinical depression, which is huge. And this is, of course, sadly unrecognized by the healthcare. And this is where an app like War on Cancer comes in. When we design and build War on Cancer, we would design it according to these 3 pillars and make sure that we cover all of them in different ways. So coming into the actual platform. So War on Cancer, as mentioned, it is one of the world's largest social cancer apps. Today, we have members from more than 20 countries. We are currently growing in terms of numbers around 1,000 to 1,500 per month, which is amazing. There's really 3 different pillars, and these pillars are connected to the above pillars from the mental health slide. The first one is taking control. So learn how to approach life with cancer from experts and people who've been there. Plus, get your hands on relevant clinical trials for you and share what you find with your doctor. The second thing is connecting and belonging. So as mentioned, it is based out of a social app. It's built from at the core, it is a social app where we nudge our members in different ways to understand and learn more about how to deal with their mental health. And lastly, rebuilding and finding purpose. So help by helping others in their experience, and also participate in health studies and use your voice to improve the future of cancer care. And this is what makes War on Cancer unique. So as we're trying to amplify the voice of our members by enabling them to lead and give in different ways and provide their patient insights and patient-reported data. Today, there's a huge cancer ecosystem consisting of precision medicine, cancer research, universities, and healthcare working around a cancer patient in order to make the cancer patient's lives better. It is scary. It is quite scary how little many of these institutions actually know about what it means to go through cancer from a patient perspective. And this is where our app comes in. So what we're doing is really bridging the gap between patients and the larger cancer ecosystem and cancer life science system by allowing our members to engage in sharing their patient-reported insights. Today, most of this type of sharing happens through surveys. So it's really important here to say that we will never be this sort of app that just takes data from members, but rather we work together with our members, making sure that our members understand how important they are, and then they can choose if they want to participate by answering surveys or providing their type of data. And that is also how War on Cancer builds sustainable business models. So we're financed by doing the type of surveys together in partnerships with the life science sector. Coming back to this slide, really just showcase the width of War on Cancer. Today, we have done 4 different projects with different institutions from different parts of the world, from the US and from Europe. This is just an example. So we haven't done yet anything with Sao Paulo and Sydney. But this is really where we hope to make cancer research and healthcare human again through this app. So with that, I thank you very much for listening to the presentation. Now I'm going to leave it for 5 minutes of Q&A. If there are any questions, feel free to shoot them out right away. Thank you for the question, Hussein Umar. So just to repeat it, what mechanisms do you have in place to minimize misinformation spread, since it's a social app that might have critical impact on people? Well, right now we are, so the community today is constantly being moderated by community managers. We make sure to monitor most of the content that is being written. However, we understand that this is this is not scalable as we continue to grow even further. So what we'll also be working a lot with is having our community helping us, making sure to flag and report things, that type of information that is not necessarily true or being spread in different ways. The last thing that we are, so we're looking at is also utilizing AI, and I mean, both with regards to recognizing texts, noticing if texts are either being either using falsely, sort of like obviously false information, or is trying to sell anything. But also we'll be working a lot with trying to educate the community in different onboarding processes, making sure that they know and understand that, as with anything on internet, it is important to be cautious and make sure to check sources for everything. But this is, of course, as with any other platform, an ongoing problem or an ongoing sort of issue that needs to be addressed. Any other questions? Or if you have another question, Hussein, feel free to shoot it out. Emma, what is next for the app? Well, quite a lot of things, to be honest. So as of right now, the app is undergoing, or if you, to be more specific, from a product development point of view, we're constantly developing the app in order to improve it, listening to our members. We are right now looking at improving the ways in which people can share content on the app today, introducing things such as question and answers, introducing in the future polls, different things, different ways in order to sort of lower the barrier, making it easier for all of our members to engage with the community and also to feel more involved. But also what we're introducing and putting a lot more focus on in the future will be what we call self-care. So in reality, War on Cancer is a social app and a self-care app meeting together, right? Because you have your social needs in order to feel like you're part of a community, be inspired by others, but there's also a lot of things you can do personally, working on yourself, and together with, and that is sort of where we are going to put more emphasis in the app development going forward. Also, in a more long-term, in a more sort of long-term play, we're looking at introducing a mental health tracker, which is a way for Warren Cancer to be able to work together with hospitals in the future. So, I mean, ideally, when you're diagnosed with cancer, it should be, hi, here's your cancer treatment and here's your mental health plan. Today, it's just, hi, here's your cancer treatment, because there's simply not enough resources and time for hospitals to address the mental health of cancer patients. And this is where we hope to come in with Warren Cancer by becoming a partner, working in an alliance with healthcare institutions, and thus being able to monitor the mental health journey of the cancer patients. So this is something we're developing with several partners from the cancer research industry, as well as from academia and healthcare institutions. Yeah. There's a lot of things there's next for the app, but yeah, I'll leave it at that for now. Cool. I'll be joining the 2D Hangouts now, so feel free to find me there and continue the discussion. All right. Thank you very much, and you have a lovely Friday and a lovely weekend. Bye.